Anyone who has seen this hand must die. Yet the man hangs it on his chest every day. Because this hand is not only his mother, it also granted him all kinds of powers and an immortal body. But the price for all of this is that he must keep killing people and seize the sacred relics of other gods to offer as sacrifices to this rotten mother. So I became the public enemy of the world. And the goddess of decay became an existence loathed by everyone to the extreme. So much so that no matter where I go, as long as my identity is exposed, I will be hunted down. Today, after being captured by a religious order, they first found the relic I had stolen not long ago, then drew their long swords and killed me on the spot. After they had gone far away, my mother crawled while telling me to kill them. I first put my head back on, then told my mother that I had already absorbed the divinity inside that relic long ago. But they had also searched me clean of all my money, and now I was a penniless pauper. So I came to a nearby town, planning to take on a few commissions at the guild to earn some money, but I couldn't say that I was a priest of the goddess of decay, so I told the receptionist that I served the goddess of preservation. After hearing that, she began looking through the files to see if there were any commissions suitable for me. Ever since I came here, I have always lied and claimed to be a follower of the preservation order. If it were any other religious order, the moment one lied about one's faith, the god one originally believed in would fly into a rage and brand them. In that case, anyone from that order could see this mark of sin. But my mother, the god of decay, is very tolerant of this lying behavior of mine. Because the decay order has long since become the public enemy of the entire world, and the goddess of decay is loathed by everyone to the extreme, and I am her only priest. Before long, the receptionist took out a commission and said this one was perfect for me. I took it and looked at it, and found that it was a mission to eliminate bandits and monsters, with 30 silver coins for each one killed. I saw no problem with it and gladly accepted it. But right now I didn't even have money for food, so I first asked the guild for a little advance payment. After hearing that, she made an exception and gave it to me on account of me being a priest, but if I did not set out on time tomorrow, I would have to pay a penalty. When my mother heard her rude tone, she wanted to kill her. I hurriedly pressed her back down. The next day, I set out together with a merchant caravan. In the caravan, a chubby little fellow named Pierre came over to talk to me, but once he started talking, he simply couldn't stop and kept chattering non-stop. In the end, it was only because the captain called for him that he finally stopped. At that moment, my mother stuck her head out again and told me to kill all these people. I told my mother that these people couldn't be killed yet, your son desperately needs this money to get through this cold winter. Seeing that my mother still wanted to kill them, I let out a helpless sigh and then had my mother see how many fingers they were worth. The next second, a hand appeared beside each of them. I took a look, and even the captain was worth only 3 fingers. 5 fingers equals 100,000 points of divinity. 4 fingers equals 10,000 points of divinity. I can obtain divinity corresponding to the number of fingers they are worth. And as long as I pay 10,000 points of divinity to the system, I can obtain a new authority. Not long ago, I had just absorbed all the divinity from a relic and successfully exchanged it for an authority. Now there are still 12 relics left. It is said that as long as I absorb all the divinity from every relic, Mother Decay will grant all of my wishes. When that time comes, I must first have her regain her sense of taste. At this moment, the captain was lecturing Pierre, and when he came back, he said the captain told him not to keep yapping beside Lord Priest. I smiled and told him it was fine, but just as I finished speaking, I heard several whooshing sounds. Several arrows shot out from the grass at the side. In an instant, everyone else in the caravan was struck by arrows and collapsed. Seeing this, I hurriedly grabbed Pierre and pushed him behind the wagon. But the next second, I myself was struck by several arrows as well. When Pierre saw me fall after being hit by arrows, he was terrified. The ones shooting from the grass were a gang of thieves. As I lay on the ground, my mother once again urged me to kill them all. I understood what my mother meant. She wanted me to play dead first, then secretly absorb everyone else's divinity, though doing so would indeed save a lot of effort. But mother, you know full well that I have always liked facing things head-on. With that, I picked up the long sword from the ground. With a clang, I leapt into the air and charged at the thieves. The thieves were stunned when they saw me rush at them. They had never expected me to still stand up after being hit by so many arrows. But I gave them no chance to react at all, and with one clean strike, I killed one of them. The other thieves were all shocked by this scene. One of the leaders told his men to go deal with the rest of the caravan first and leave this priest to him. As he spoke, he stood up, drew his sword, and slashed at me. Seeing this, I also drew my sword to block it first, then I gripped the hilt tightly and twisted with force. First, I put some distance between us. Seeing that his strength was truly not weak, I asked mother how many fingers he was worth. When the man saw me talking to myself, he asked what nonsense I was muttering. After saying that, he drew his sword again and rushed at me, tangling with me in combat. During the fight, mother stuck her head out and told me that guy was worth 2.5 fingers. I didn't expect this thief to be on the same level as that member of the order who had chopped off my head and stolen the relic earlier. Seeing my absent-minded expression, the thief thought I was looking down on him, so he swung his sword at me with all his strength. After our blades clashed, my sword was shattered on the spot. I looked helplessly at the broken sword and said his weapon really was nice. When he saw that, he let out a mocking laugh. However, he also knew that priests could use magic, so he did not rashly launch another attack. Then he said that seeing as I was a pauper, he was prepared to make an exception and spare me, telling me to leave right now. I burst out laughing when I heard that, and told them that if they were willing to wash their hands of this and stop robbery from now on, I would leave immediately. If that were the case, I would spare your lives this time. When the thief heard me say something like that, it only confirmed to him that I truly still had a secret weapon I hadn't used. But suddenly, my voice stopped abruptly because an arrow flew over and struck me right in the head. Only then did the thief let out a sigh of relief and say, "You guys are way too slow." His teammate walked over from the distance and said they had just finished killing everyone in the caravan, leaving no survivors. At that moment, I spoke from the ground and asked them, "Did you really clean everything up?" Hearing that, everyone stared in shock behind their captain. Their captain was puzzled as to why everyone had that expression. And then, under everyone's stunned gaze, I slowly stood up and pulled the arrow out of my head and snapped it in half. Immediately after that, I clasped my hands together in front of my chest. I already gave you a chance, but your answer was to shoot an arrow straight into my head. The moment the captain saw that I was really about to cast magic, he instantly reacted. He turned around and hurriedly ordered everyone else to shoot arrows at me, and none of them dared hesitate in the slightest, drawing their bows and firing. In an instant, another rain of arrows came at me, yet I stood there without moving, letting the arrowheads pierce my skin. When they saw that, they all stopped what they were doing and stood frozen in place, staring at me. Then I began to pray aloud, "O Mother of Decay, your son is now in trouble. I am at a loss, terrified, and truly do not know what to do." When the captain saw things were going wrong, he shouted for everyone to run, but his companions had already started running before he even yelled. But as they ran, they suddenly discovered that a wall had blocked their path, a barrier that the living cannot cross, and also a skill that a priest of decay must use before exercising authority. It can trap living enemies while concealing decayed divinity so that it will not be detected by other gods. Seeing there was no other way, the captain could only slash at it with his sword. But just as he turned around to give an order, there came a thud, and something suddenly appeared and landed on top of his head. This sight made everyone's eyes widen. After the smoke cleared, they could finally see that it was a four-armed monster, and their captain had already been crushed into a bloody pulp. Everyone looked up, having no idea what this thing was. As the monster let out a roar, they began begging me for mercy, saying they would never commit robbery again. Hearing that, I ignored them, merely smiled at the corner of my mouth, and told the monster to leave their heads intact and do whatever it wanted with the rest. Before long, the monster devoured all of their bodies, leaving only their heads, which I hung at my waist. But I told my mother that I still couldn't absorb their divinity yet, because once all the divinity was drained, these corpses would rot. Then anyone who came to investigate the scene would realize something was wrong with me. At that moment, I suddenly heard a rustling sound from beneath my feet, and when I looked down, I realized that Pierre had not died. He was lying on the ground, gasping for breath. I thought to myself that I couldn't let this person die yet, I needed a living person to spread my reputation. So I asked Mother to help once more, and keep his wounds from continuing to rot. The scene shifts to an ancient castle somewhere, where a blue-haired woman was at this moment holding a holy grail. She asked a person standing before her what had finally been done with the guy who stole the relic. The person in front of her said that the members of the order had chopped off his head on the spot. The blue-haired woman then asked how they had dealt with that person's corpse afterward. At the time they had no mind for anything else, so they only took the relic and left the body alone. After hearing that, the blue-haired woman turned and prepared to leave, telling the man to take the relic back first. And she said that she herself planned to go traveling. "My lady priest, why did you suddenly decide to go traveling? Could it be because of the oracle?" "Partly because of the oracle, and besides that, I also need to go meet someone." With that, she turned and left. 10 years ago, all religious orders received an oracle, and its contents were, "The end shall descend upon this land clad in the guise of life." Meanwhile, I was also carrying Pierre back to town. The guards outside the gate were stunned when they saw that only Pierre and I had returned. Then they hurried over to help me support Pierre. At that moment, the red-haired young lady who had assigned me the mission earlier suddenly came out and said that I could enter the town with her as well. She even praised my strength, saying that I had actually carried Pierre, who weighed over 200 Gene, back with just one hand. "I heard that the bag you're carrying is filled with the heads of the criminals involved in this incident. Rather than keeping them personally, it would be better to hand them over to our guild to deal with." Hearing that, I handed the bag to her, and right after that, she asked me whether I had a place to stay that night. After learning that I had nowhere to stay, she asked me whether I wanted to spend the night here before leaving. When I heard that, my face flushed crimson and my heart began pounding. But my mother kept telling me to kill her. When she saw that I gave no response, she urged me even more strongly to kill her. After I lay in bed that night, I held my mother and told her that I knew what I was doing. I had no improper intentions whatsoever toward that red-haired young lady. It turned out she was only letting me sleep in the Mercenary Guild's guest room for one night. It seemed I had misunderstood. At that moment, there came a knock at the door. After I gave permission, the door creaked open just a crack. The red-haired young lady first apologized for disturbing my rest, then said that there was something she wanted to trouble me with. After asking around, I learned that the Lord wanted to see me because the unfortunate mercenary captain who had died was the Lord's half-brother. When my mother under the blanket saw that the red-haired girl had come, she again kept saying for me to kill her. Before long, I was brought to the Lord's room, and after seeing me enter, the Lord asked whether I had also been present when his younger brother died. The person before me, with his jet-black hair, was Tretton, the Lord of Gus. I did not answer him, but first froze for a moment. Then a faint wicked smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. Because the very first moment I saw this Lord, Mother drew a huge cross over his body. The reason my mother, hidden inside my clothes, drew such a huge cross the moment she saw the Lord, was to tell me that this was a creature that could not be judged by fingers, and among the creatures that show up as crosses, the only ones capable of taking human form are demons. These so-called demons refer to those who are born powerful, yet are stateless beings incapable of acquiring anything for themselves. So when they want to obtain anything in this world, they can only make certain deals with humans, which is why demons are extremely fond of all humans. But demons are usually very despicable, and this has made the gods extremely wary of them. Some even despise them, and the gods cannot stand humans, including their followers, indulging demons. So they spread their will through believers, defined filth upon them, and named them demons. They also said that demons are the embodiment of all evil in the world. Thus the priests, who hated evil as their mortal enemy, began hunting demons. When Tretton heard me call him a demon, he first fell silent. I never expected my dead younger brother to bring me such an honored guest. Since you can see through my identity at a glance, I suppose you are not a priest serving the goddess of preservation either. In the end, he said that he was the crawling weight. I also told him that my name was Yeso, a priest serving the god of decay. After hearing that, Tretton said he had thought all the sons of the goddess of decay were already dead. He never expected that there was still a living child of decay in the world today. Then he said that there was no other reason for calling me here this time, other than wanting me to tell him in detail how his brother had died. He had originally seen his younger brother worrying because he had no work, so he secretly arranged this commission for him. He never expected that it would cost him his life. And he also promised that he would pay me a generous reward. Hearing that, I couldn't help but smile. I happened to be short on money right now. So I told Tretton everything that had happened at the time. He also gave me several gold coins as payment. I said to Mother, "How could you say the Lord was trying to tempt me with money? He clearly gave me these gold coins out of kindness. And how exactly did I become a money-loving priest? What you said was a bit too much. By the way, do you know? Gold coins do not rot. There is something else that will not rot either, just like gold coins, and that is my devotion to you." With that, I gently stroked Mother with my hand. She then relaxed in my hand. Right after that, I slowly placed her back onto my chest. To me, you will always come first. So please rest assured and leave everything to me. After that, I went to find the red-haired young lady again. The mother I had just coaxed into calming down once again strongly demanded that I kill her the moment she saw her. At that moment, the red-haired young lady pointed toward a group of people nearby and told me to go greet these esteemed priests of the cult of edification. As soon as I heard they were from the cult of edification, I thought to myself that I had no desire to get to know that bunch of lunatics. But the moment I turned my head and saw them clearly, my heart suddenly pounded violently. That was because Mother was sending me a signal. That also meant that among those few people, there had to be one person carrying a relic. After seeing me, one of them stepped forward to greet me. "Hello, I am the hammer placed upon the scales of punishment, and my name is Obus." He also introduced the large fellow beside him as Cornu. The woman behind them was Petina. I never expected to meet a priest of preservation in a place like this. After they finished introducing themselves, I also saluted them and introduced myself as a priest serving the god of preservation, my name being Yeso. Then the red-haired young lady behind me said that the esteemed priests of the cult of edification would also be staying here for a while. After hearing that, I thought to myself that this was simply wonderful. I had been planning to kill them all right away. But while I absorbed the divinity within a relic, some decayed divinity will inevitably leak out. That way, I can avoid the risk of being discovered, and there will be plenty of chances later to seize their relic. Then they said they were going to greet Lord Tretton first. We could have a long talk another time when there was a chance. After saluting each other again, they turned and left. Just as I was about to return to my room, the red-haired young lady stopped me and asked when I planned to pay for the room. A little disappointed, I asked her whether she had let me stay here yesterday just to make money. After hearing that, she said, "Otherwise, what did you think I let you sleep here for? Ha, because you were interested in me? But honestly, I really did ask you to stay out of goodwill." As she said that, she moved close to me and asked whether I could cast a preservation blessing spell for her, so that her ingredients could stay fresh for a long time. Seeing her do that, Mother again told me to kill her. I also hurriedly stepped back and distanced myself from her, saying there was no need to lean close to my ear just to say something like that. She merely smiled faintly when she saw that. Then she looked at me teasingly and asked why not. At that moment, Cornu came back. I felt a little puzzled when I saw him and asked why he had not followed the other two priests there. Cornu said that because of his race, the Lord in the North might have certain reservations. So after seeing the other two priests off, he came back again. After hearing that, the red-haired young lady said that wouldn't be the case. Lord Tretton would not mind such a thing. Although he treats people somewhat coldly, he is fair in public and private matters and is a lord of exceptional ability. Therefore, he has many supporters within the territory of Gus. At that point, I asked Cornu from the side, "What are you planning to do by going to see the Lord?" Cornu said they had been investigating the aftermath of the oracle that descended 10 years ago. Lord Obus believed that the end mentioned in the oracle referred to demons. Hearing that, my heart trembled, and I asked whether they suspected that Lord Tretton was a demon. Lord Obus was only going to confirm it because he carried a relic capable of identifying demons. Meanwhile, Obus had also arrived at Lord Tretton's room. The moment they met, the relic he carried gave a strong reaction, and Tretton bared his vicious fangs. The next second, the room they were in exploded violently. The conversation we had been having was also interrupted by the commotion. At that moment, Tretton emerged from the ruins, already transformed into an enormous crocodile, while at the same time, the iron hammer in Obus's hand began releasing lightning. With a thunderous boom from the heavens, he descended carrying 10,000 tons of thunder onto Tretton's head. The resulting shock instantly swept through the surrounding several li, and it also left a brilliant light shining in the sky. Cornu recognized at a glance that it was Obus's hammer of punishment. "The esteemed priests are fighting a demon, we must go help them." When I saw that, I told him to go on ahead, and that I would follow shortly. After I went in, I shouted, "Eileen." When the red-haired young lady heard me calling her, she asked what exactly had happened outside. I did not explain too much to her and directly picked her up, then asked her which hospital Pierre had been sent to for treatment. Before she even had a chance to answer, my feet had already begun to exert force. Then with a single movement I flew more than 10 meters outside. With a thud, I landed on the ground, cracking the surrounding pavement, and then instantly vanished from where I stood again. Only then did Eileen clearly see what was happening outside. An enormous crocodile had actually appeared in the center of the town. Eileen was so frightened she nearly wet herself, shouting for me to be careful of the monster. I told her to stop wasting breath and quickly tell me where Pierre was. Then she pointed me in a direction. When I rushed into the hospital, I saw that it had not collapsed yet, and that Pierre was lying on the bed fast asleep. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. I had worked hard to save him. After all, I couldn't let him die in such a minor disturbance. Then I hoisted Pierre onto my shoulder, and told Eileen to hold on tight to me because I no longer had a free hand to hold her. Hearing that, she blushed and wrapped her arms tightly around me from behind. Then, with force gathering under my feet, whoosh, I shot forward like an arrow. At that moment, Eileen suddenly thought of something and told me she knew of a secret passage here. Then she pointed it out to me. But the door was locked and she had no key. The next second, with a bang, I kicked the thick wooden door to pieces. Seeing how fierce I was, Eileen's eyes filled with admiration, but after going in, I did not continue running. Instead, after putting them down, I turned around and ran back again. Then I arrived at the center of the town. When I saw the scene there, I couldn't help being shocked. Then I hurriedly dug Cornu out from beneath the rubble. But at this moment he was already covered in blood, and when he saw that the one who came was me, he gasped heavily for breath. I gave him a rough examination and saw that his wounds were too severe. I was powerless to help in my current state. I knew very well that if this continued, the only thing awaiting him was death. But I still first asked where the other priests were. However, when I turned to look not far away, I got the answer: Patina, the priest who had come with them, had already stopped breathing. Taking advantage of the fact that Cornu had not yet breathed his last, I hurriedly asked him whether he knew how to kill a demon. He said in a trembling voice that when they came, they had also brought another relic. That was the white sword that Lord Obus had stabbed into the demon's head. If one could use that sword to pierce the demon's skin and drive it into its brain, then the demon could be killed. After saying these words, Cornu's eyeballs stopped moving. When I saw that both of them had already died, I began absorbing their divinity and offered it as sacrifice to my mother. At the same time, Obus was still fiercely battling the demon. Seizing an opportunity, he swung his hammer with force. After striking the white sword, it sank a little deeper into the demon's body. This caused Treton to let out a painful roar. I also took this chance to draw my sword and leap toward its tail. Then I viciously stabbed it into its skin. When Obus saw me come, he shouted in approval. Now all it needs is one more hammer strike, and the white sword will be driven in completely. But at that moment, I began to sense that something was wrong. The Treton beneath my feet was clearly shaking even more violently than before, and as it turned its body, a bad thought rose in my heart: could this crocodile be planning to use a death roll? And just as I expected, it suddenly pushed off with force and leapt into the air. It really did perform a death roll in midair, and I was thrown off because of it. I crashed heavily onto the ground. If it had been an ordinary person, they would already have been smashed to pieces. But as a priest of decay, I possess an immortal body. Just as I was about to get up and continue fighting, the thing before my eyes made me unable to stop myself from laughing. The relic those priests had brought had actually been knocked flying to my side during the battle just now. So without another word, I immediately picked it up in my hand. Then I excitedly told Mother that I had gotten another relic for her. Now your son shall offer this relic to you as a sacrifice, and this way you can lift another seal. The moment my words fell, Mother began to infuse the relic with the aura of decay. 723 points of divinity. Before long, the relic was shattered by the aura of decay, and at the same time I obtained 223 points of divinity. Seeing that Mother had already finished absorbing it, I asked her which seal had been released this time. Then she began to show me, and with a whoosh, she flew out from my body. I discovered that now she could convey her will to me from a very great distance. That was certainly a good thing, but wasn't this ability a bit too trivial? Seeing that she looked a little unhappy, I hurriedly changed my words. But seeing your growth, this son of yours is truly moved to tears. But now comes the truly important part. O Mother of Decay, I shall offer you 10,000 points of divinity. Please grant me a new authority and make me stronger. Then I was enveloped by a dazzling green light. As Mother poured divine power into my body, I also successfully gained an authority called Script of Decay. When I carefully sensed it, I found that although the effect of this authority was simple, it was very powerful. That is, when I activate Script of Decay, dense dark green tattoos will appear across the surface of my skin. These tattoos will greatly enhance my physical abilities. There just happened to be a good opportunity in front of me to test this newly acquired ability. But after I got up, I saw something else behind a huge boulder. After overturning the boulder, I discovered that it was Obus, already dead. It seemed that during the crocodile's death roll, he had been flung down at high speed just like me. But he did not possess an immortal body like I did. May his soul rest in peace. Immediately after that, I offered Obus as a sacrifice to Mother, and successfully obtained 1,000 points of divinity. At the same time, the crocodile was still in a frenzied state. This couldn't help but make me feel puzzled. The priests of the cult of edification who had driven the demon mad were already dead, yet the demon was still rampaging. But that was perfect, it could have a taste of the power of Script of Decay. With that, I told Mother to hold tight to my clothes. Then I began striding toward the demon. But midway, it also noticed me. As I leapt toward its back, it swung that huge tail at me. However, under the enhancement of script of decay, its speed looked to me as if it had been slowed down several times. After I easily dodged it, I landed on its back and at the same time discovered the white sword embedded in its skin. Just as I was about to run toward the white sword, it began twisting that enormous body again. It seemed it wanted to use a death roll once more, but I had already anticipated this move. I wasn't going to fall in the same place twice. Before it could begin rolling, I sprang down to the ground. When it started spinning at high speed, I darted to the side. But halfway through my run, I suddenly stopped and coughed up a mouthful of blood. I had not expected the spread to be this fast. The reason for all this was that while using script of decay, my body would also begin rotting from the internal organs. So now I had to end this quickly. With that thought, I leapt into the air and came to the white sword. After arriving before it, I gripped the hilt tightly. Then I concentrated all the strength in my body into my palm. Only, instead of forcefully driving the white sword deeper into the demon's body, with a squelch, I yanked the white sword out of the demon with force. And at the same time I shouted, "Awaken, Lord Tretton!" The moment the sword was pulled out of its body, Tretton's eyes widened. Then his entire body began to crack and collapse apart, forcibly undoing the demon form. After returning to human shape, he was already gravely wounded and lying in a pool of blood. At that moment, I came before him like a savior. "Lord, are you clear-headed now? Honored Lord Priest Yeso, meeting you truly is my great fortune." I said he was far too polite, and told him it was all because of that sword suppressing his reason. Then I stretched out my hand and asked him for 2 gold coins as compensation. After hearing that, he burst out laughing, clearly never expecting me to say such a thing at a moment like this. But he still reached out and grasped the hand I had extended. The scene shifts back to the place where I was first hunted down. At this moment, a mass of blue flame appeared in the blue-haired priestess's hand. As she threw the flame into the snow, it instantly burned away the thick layer of snow covering the ground nearby. More importantly, it caused absolutely no damage to the other plants. The man who had led the pursuit of me that day was greatly shocked when he saw this authority. But after all the surrounding snow melted, my corpse still could not be found. Yet he clearly remembered that it was right here that day that he chopped off my head. He thought that perhaps it had been carried away by some nearby wild beast. The blue-haired priestess first thanked this person for bringing her here. Then she told him to list the names of all the nearby cities. After the matters on the town side came to a temporary end, Lord Tretton publicly declared that it was I who had slain that enormous demon, and that I had even rescued him from the demon's jaws. Thus I gained the nickname Demon Slayer, and obviously, I felt that this nickname did not suit me at all. But Eileen seemed to like the title very much. Every time she saw me, she would call me by it, making me attract the attention of the people around me each time, and no matter where I went, I would be recognized. And people would discuss behind my back, saying, "That priest must be the famous demon slayer, right? Though he looks delicate, in truth both his strength and power are tremendous." They even say he once single-handedly cut off the heads of an entire bandit gang. Not long afterward, Tretton sent his steward to invite me over. The moment he saw me, he spread his arms and laughed excitedly. "It has only been a few days, but Lord Tretton's complexion looks quite good." He first laughed loudly, then said, "Lord Yeso the Demon Slayer, your complexion also looks quite good." When I heard that, I teased him by saying, "Isn't the demon still right here living quite well?" He said, "Even demons have to live, don't they? What life is there that is born just to die?" After sitting down, I praised him, saying that his wooden prosthetic leg and prosthetic arm could both move so freely, truly remarkable. But he said that this was all he could manage for now. And he said that in order to be able to move as freely as he did now, he had paid a very painful price. When I heard that, I thought it must be something extremely serious, so I asked him exactly what kind of price it was. He picked up his teacup and took a sip, a smile appearing at the corner of his mouth that was impossible to read. Then he said that the price was that the roots of the hair on this body would all fall out before long. Probably in just a few months, he'd become a little bald darling, and I could actually picture that image. Then I changed the subject and asked him what he had called me here for this time. He said he had received a commission here, one that specifically named me and wanted me to go. It was probably because they had heard of the fame of the Demon Slayer and had come looking especially for me. After all, what they wanted to do had to do with ruins of the ancient empire. And the reward was a full 5 gold coins. Not only could the reward be advanced in advance, but if one made a significant contribution during the exploration of the ruins, one could also take away one relic brought out of the ruins. At this moment, my mother told me to agree at once. I felt that mother was right. Of course, one should agree to such a good thing first and talk about the rest later. So I put on an innocent expression and agreed. A very, 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 very long time ago, someone brought the twisted age of mages to an end, unified the continent, and founded the ancient empire. Although the advanced technologies they invented have all been lost by now, the relics they created are still precious treasures of great power. To put it simply, most high-level equipment consists of relics from the ancient empire. Very soon, I met the group who had issued the commission. The one leading them introduced himself as Kalman Batas. When I heard the name Batas, I first froze for a moment. He could also see the change in my expression, so he explained that the Black Wolf, Ensis Batas, was his father. And he also said that he himself was an illegitimate son. When I heard the words illegitimate son, although I responded with a smile on the surface, inside I was thinking that the principle-driven Black Wolf actually had an illegitimate child. I had thought he had lived alone ever since losing his wife. Apparently a person's image in rumors is completely different from reality. But I couldn't continue asking about it because that would seem very impolite. Then I had him introduce the other members of the team. The first person he introduced was a woman wrapped up so tightly that not a bit of skin showed. He said her name was Tonisha, a mage, and that this time she would be responsible for leading us to the ruins. Then he introduced a member of the horned race, saying that his name was Sukas, that he was extremely loyal and reliable, and no matter when, he was a companion one could trust. When they shook hands with me, they called me Demon Slayer. That title is too embarrassing, please just call me Yeso from now on. This is an achievement you attained yourself. There is no need to feel ashamed. Seeing that we had all already greeted one another, Kalman prepared to set out for the ruins, since just walking there would take 2 full days. The scene shifts to the night 2 days later. At this time, we had found an open area and made camp. Seeing me still sitting there, Kalman asked whether I wasn't going to sleep. I told him that I had already slept enough, and even if I lay down now, I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. Then he asked me, being this handsome, I must surely have had quite a few girlfriends, and wanted me to share some interesting stories with him. My face darkened, and I said I had never had one. I was as clean and pure as untouched snow. Then he asked me what kind of woman I liked, and the moment my mother heard that, she instantly perked up. I first thought in silence for a moment, then said that I liked a woman who stayed by my side. To wake up and see the woman you love sleeping beside you is also something very meaningful. Kalman said that what he valued most in a woman was her heart. When mother heard that, she gave him a thumbs up. But who would have thought that the next thing he said was that the heart grows inside the chest, and to be broad-minded one must have a broad chest. In the end, he pointed to his own chest and said that he liked women who were big there. After hearing that, mother strongly demanded that I kill him. I advised him that it would be best not to say such things in front of ladies. In the end, he said that after talking with me, it felt as if he had made a friend he had known for many years. I also smiled and said that I felt the same. The next morning, mother told me that when making friends, one must first see clearly what kind of person the other party is. I told mother that while what she said was certainly true, I quite liked this cheerful young man. After packing up our things, we set out toward the ruins. Not long after walking, Tonisha suddenly stopped and said that we had already arrived at our destination, pulling a key out of her clothes as she spoke. She explained that the method for entering the ruins of the ancient empire was simple. The first and most important thing was to obtain the key. Then come to the coordinates marked on the key, and read aloud the ancient incantation written on the key. Because only mages can understand the ancient language written on the key, a mage is indispensable when exploring ruins. If there is one and only one exception here, then that is me. I can also understand the ancient language. Only, this is a secret known only to me and mother. In the end, all one needs to do is insert the key into the air and gently turn it clockwise. That way, the portal leading to the ruins of the ancient empire will open. Then we followed Kalman and walked in. After passing through a dark corridor, we arrived before these magnificent ruins. When Kalman saw these ruins, he couldn't help but exclaim that their state of preservation was better than any ruins he had ever visited before. There were definitely a great many powerful relics inside. After hearing that, I couldn't help swallowing, because it was my first time seeing ruins. Only Tonisha did not look very happy. Next, we officially stepped into the ruins. After walking through a corridor, our path was blocked by a huge stone gate. I looked at the words on the gate, and their rough meaning was that one had to prove that royal blood flowed in one's veins. Tonisha also told us the words written on it, and said that since we lacked the blood of the ancient royal family, we had to be prepared for battle. The moment she finished speaking, the stone gate slowly opened, and the runes on it also turned red. Then all kinds of strange sounds came from behind the gate. In the blink of an eye, countless monsters appeared and rushed toward us. Seeing that, Sukas took the lead, swinging his giant axe. With a quick dash forward, he cut down a whole swath of them. At the same time, Tonisha in the back also picked up her staff and began activating magic. When she finished casting, crackling sounds came from the ground. The next second, beams of light burst out from beneath the ground under those monsters' feet. Before they had time to react, they were engulfed by a violent explosion. But a few stragglers still lunged toward us. With a shing, I drew my longsword. Before those monsters could even land, they were enveloped by my fierce sword aura. Suddenly, one monster hiding in the shadows rushed in front of me. But the next second, its head was pierced by an arrow. When I turned to look, the one who had fired the arrow was Kalman. After the battle ended, Sukas and Tonisha began arguing. Why do you keep directing the enemies toward our side from the very start? Do you know Lord Yeso and I were nearly injured? But Tonisha said that was the fastest way to eliminate the enemies. Besides, didn't we already wipe them all out, and nobody got hurt in the end? Hearing that, Sukas was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. In the end, seeing that he couldn't win the argument against Tonisha, he simply turned around and sat down on the spot. At that moment, Kalman walked over to me and said that as expected of the Demon Slayer, what I had done just now had truly been dazzling. I likewise praised his superb archery. He said that was because he had been learning archery since childhood. The bow was like a friend to him. Just as Kalman and I were exchanging compliments and chatting happily, Tonisha came over and said that her magic had recovered and asked when we were leaving. That made Sukas unhappy again. He said he had just sat down to rest and now they were leaving again. You were just standing behind us reciting a few spells, so of course you're not tired, but we were the ones actually on the front line. I don't see any problem with setting off now. After all, aside from you, the three of us are still full of energy. These few sentences made Sukas furious. At this moment, Kalman hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over, saying that we should rest a bit before setting off. Tonisha could not very well refute that again, and only let out a sound. I only let out a sigh of relief after the smell of gunpowder in the air finally dissipated. But I could understand Tonisha's kind of behavior. Because most mages in this world are stubborn fools. Because becoming a mage here is very simple. That is, one is simply born into the world as a mage. While still in their mother's womb, they already possess magic power. Although there are some individual differences, once they reach a certain age, they awaken automatically. And when that time comes, information related to the ancient language will flood into their minds like a bursting torrent. In this way, without paying any price at all, we can gain the powerful new identity of a mage. And with the ancient language and their inborn magic, they can disturb the laws of this world. But perhaps because their heads are filled with too much confidence, they are naturally very averse to studying. So most mages become more and more like uncultured, simple-minded ruffians. Among the mages I have met, most are self-centered and stubborn. A mage like Tonisha actually already counts as rather polite among mages. After we rested for a while, we prepared to continue onward. But at that moment, the stone walls all around us suddenly began to shake violently. Then the heavy stone slab above the gate slammed down, sealing off all the exits around us. As a rumbling sound came again from above the room, a huge teleportation circle appeared on the ceiling, and from within it dropped a stone giant several meters tall. I thought to myself that for such well-preserved and such enormous ruins, the enemies before had indeed been a bit too weak. It now seemed that this giant fellow was our true enemy. When Sukas saw it, he got up and picked up his giant axe. Just as he was about to charge forward, Tonisha came over and told him to get aside. Then she seemed to begin chanting a powerful incantation, and the surrounding stones were shattered by that tremendous force. But at the same time, the stone giant was just about to finish assembling itself. As the sapphire on its head lit up, it began making slight movements. Sensing that things were going wrong, Kalman shouted to Tonisha, telling her to either hurry up and fire or get out of the way. Hearing that, Tonisha sped up her chanting. At last, after finishing the spell, she fired a powerful beam of light, but the already awakened stone giant lowered its head and dodged it. Seeing that, the three of us immediately realized things were bad. The next second, the stone giant teleported directly above Tonisha's head. At that moment, Tonisha was so frightened that she wet herself. She had never expected this lumbering stone giant to move so quickly. With a sickening squelch, the stone giant smashed Tonisha into pieces. When Sukas saw that scene, he was so shocked that he stood frozen in place. But the stone giant had already noticed him behind it. I hurriedly shouted for him to dodge. But it was too late, the stone giant's enormous palm had already reached his face. Then it sent him flying, slamming him into the wall and turning him into a bloody pulp. In less than 2.5 seconds, the two of them were both killed by that stone giant. At once, the stone giant noticed Kalman and me. I turned and asked Kalman whether he wanted to live. Clearly, my question stunned him, but he still nodded and said that of course he did. If you want to live, then please raise your chin. Before he could react, my fist had already reached his face. Then I punched him in the chin and knocked him out. I told mother that time was pressing, so I had no time to pray, and therefore she had to make our giant come over immediately. Before I had even finished speaking, my white giant had already appeared above the stone giant's head. This stone giant clearly had not expected that. Before even the white giant's lower body had emerged, it had already clenched both fists. Then it smashed them down on the stone giant's head with all its might. Right after that, without giving the stone giant any chance to get up, it once again swung its fists and pummeled it wildly. Meanwhile, I ran off to the side. The divinity of Tunisia and Sukkot must not be wasted. After absorbing Tunisia's, I gained 1,000 points. After absorbing Sukkot's, I gained 100 points. Then I dragged the unconscious Kalman to a safe place. As I watched the two giants trading blow after blow, it seemed this would still take a very long time. But then mother stuck her head out and said, "Kill it." I immediately understood. At once, I used Script of Decay, and in an instant my body was covered in dark green tattoos. I could also feel my body filled with inexhaustible strength. And my target was the sapphire on the stone giant's head, because in its massive body, that was the only relatively conspicuous part. Thinking that, I had already arrived on the back of the white giant. Then I leapt from the top of its head and rushed toward the stone giant's crown. Although it noticed me at that moment as well, it was already too late. The next second, after I brought down my sword, the sapphire shattered with a crack. Without the sapphire, the stone giant stopped moving completely. Seeing that it had one, the white giant excitedly threw back its head and roared. I also turned and thanked it. But just then, mother told me to watch out behind me. When I turned my head, I discovered that 3 more portals had appeared on the ceiling. And out of them came 3 more stone giants exactly the same as the one we had just defeated. When I saw that, not only was I dumbfounded, even the white giant behind me was dumbfounded as well. The scene shifts to half an hour later. At this moment, Kalman also woke up from unconsciousness and asked me whether Sukkot and Tunisia were really dead. Although I wanted to save them too, things had happened too fast, and I was powerless. After hearing that, Kalman began blaming himself. The moment that stone giant appeared, we should have activated the key and escaped from there. Although he had only just hired and met them, no matter what, it was his own desire that had caused their deaths. I told him not to blame himself too much, as those who were hired, they should have known that they might also meet with disaster. Immediately after that, Kalman asked me where we were. I told him that we had already passed through that stone gate from before. He was surprised and asked how I had dealt with that stone giant. But then, after another thought, he withdrew the question he had just asked, because he knew that since I would rather knock him out than let him see it, it would be rather rude to press the matter. What was more, I was now his savior, so he swore in the name of the Batas family that he would certainly repay me for saving his life in the future. Hearing that, I smiled and said that he was far too polite. Then I told him that I had not defeated the stone giant, but had found a chance to escape from inside. Actually, I was not lying to Kalman. I really had run out from inside. Just half an hour earlier, after I defeated that stone giant, 3 more stone giants jumped out of the portals. So I let the giant of decay go forward alone, and while it was being one-sidedly beaten up by those 3 stone giants, I used the power of Script of Decay to kick Kalman out through the gate. Before escaping, I had already told the giant of decay to head back when the time was right, so it should have been able to leave through the portal on its own. After that, we continued exploring forward. We came to another great door, and thought this should be the end of the ruins. But this door bore no seal and opened very easily. After entering, we discovered that in the very center of the room was a large bowl. Above the bowl floated a strange long blade and a necklace. At this moment, Kalman said he wanted to ask me for a favor. He wanted that necklace, and said that after we got out, he would definitely thank me properly. After hearing that, I smiled and asked him why he wanted the necklace. Kalman explained that this necklace was called the Bloodline Compass. As long as the user's blood was dripped onto it, the relative they wished to find would appear. After that, the necklace would absorb the user's blood and point out the direction where that relative was located. After hearing his explanation, I roughly understood his intention. Then he said that he wanted to use this item to search for his mother. After hearing that, I asked him, "Then can I take this sword?" Without even thinking, he agreed, but at that moment a stone giant suddenly charged in, and we hurriedly escaped through the teleportation gate before us. After coming out, we found a place to rest. He took out the necklace and asked whether I could pray for him. After hearing that, I prayed for him in the name of the goddess of preservation. After the prayer was complete, he cut his finger, then dripped the blood onto the necklace. The next second, the necklace responded strongly. Kalman stared at the necklace in his hand with incomparable excitement. The necklace pointed out a direction for him, which meant that his mother was still alive. Immediately after that, Kalman repeatedly thanked me, saying he truly did not know how to repay such kindness. I told him that whenever the time came, he only needed to repay me with full sincerity. Lord Yeso, since you mentioned sincerity, may I make a suggestion? That is, to extend your employment until we find my mother. According to the direction indicated by the necklace, we happen to be heading west. So on the way, we can conveniently stop by the capital. Of course, I will pay for all the expenses on the journey. The moment I heard this proposal, I found it suited me perfectly, but I thought that if I agreed right away, I would seem too worldly. So I put on an expression of contemplation. Tick-tock, a few minutes passed. I still kept that contemplative expression. Tick-tock, a few more minutes passed. I thought to myself that if I agreed now, I probably wouldn't seem too worldly anymore. With that thought, I stood up and grasped Kalman's hand, and said that I would be very happy to help him find his mother. But first I returned to the town and told Ailey about this matter. When she heard that I was leaving so suddenly, she became very angry. But after venting, she told me to hold out my hand, and said that this thing had not originally been meant to arrive so soon, it was only because she had gone to great effort to get it. After I opened my hand and looked at the sparkling thing in my palm, I recognized that it was a silver mercenary badge. After putting it away, I thanked Eileen, but she said that was not what she wanted to hear. What she wanted to hear me say with my own mouth was, "When we meet again next time, I will definitely come back for the sake of reuniting with you." When I heard that, I smiled faintly and thought to myself, "I'm truly sorry, Eileen. My life drifts like duckweed, so for me, this would be nothing more than a promise I could never fulfill." Then Eileen said that if I kept going on like this, even when I reached the end of my life, I still wouldn't be able to fall in love. So what I mean is, when we meet again next time, if there is a chance, we absolutely must meet again. After hearing what she said, the dumbfounded me became even more dumbfounded. Just as I was about to ask her what she meant, she pressed a finger against my lips. She said I didn't need to know, and that I should carry this curiosity with me. That was the punishment she was giving me. After hearing that, Mother once again demanded that I kill her. After saying farewell to Eileen, I went to see Lord Tretton. I never expected the side effects to make him become a little bald darling so quickly. When he heard that I was leaving Gus and heading to another city, he handed me a letter of introduction written personally by himself. Then he said that he had originally wanted to give me some money for the journey, but not long ago he had spent it all on rebuilding Gus. So he told me to take this letter of introduction, and if I ran into any difficulties on the road, I could ask his friend for help. But he also said that his friend had a rather bad temper, and unless absolutely necessary, it would be better not to go looking for him. After expressing my thanks to Lord Tretton, I accepted the letter. Finally, he said that as my friend, he hoped I could always enjoy life. After all, life really is very short. After everything had been dealt with, Kalman and I set off on our journey. Kalman said that after just half a day's more walking, we would reach the next city, Kelton. But Mother kept telling me to kill him. Although Mother did not seem to like Kalman very much, she still accepted the fact that I was traveling with him. That was because Kalman was worth 3.5 fingers. If I killed him and absorbed his divinity, then I could round it up and absorb the 10,000 points of divinity corresponding to 4 fingers. Using those 10,000 points of divinity, I would once again be able to obtain a new authority. But I rather liked his cheerful personality, so I still wanted to spare his life. As we walked, I suddenly sensed that something was wrong. I immediately drew the serrated sword I had obtained from the ruins. This made Kalman extremely nervous. I told him that there was the smell of blood around us. Not only was it very close, it was also constantly approaching us. With that, I activated the serrated sword in my hand, producing a deafening roar. The next second, the ground beneath Kalman's feet was overturned, and he hurriedly dodged to the side. The next second, a huge spider leapt out of the ground above our heads. Then it landed on the tree beside us. Kalman recognized at a glance that it was a snow spider. After seeing us, the snow spider spat silt from its mouth. Kalman reacted and drew his bow to shoot. but I was even faster than the speed at which he could draw his bow, directly leaping in front of the spider and slashing out with one blade. Because of the special properties of this serrated sword, it left a terrifying and hideous wound on the snow spider. In the end, the snow spider could not bear such pain and actually severed its own injured leg directly. At the same time, spider blood splattered all over my body. It seemed that the next time I used this sword, I would have to prepare a place to bathe in advance. Without further ado, I activated the serrated sword again and slashed repeatedly at the snow spider. At this moment, the snow spider had been chopped by me until it was nearly reduced to mush. And the more I hacked away, the more excited I became, my whole body drenched in blood. Meanwhile, the scene returns to Gus. That blue-haired priestess came here to see Lord Tretton. Tretton first apologized to her because the reception room had already collapsed, so he had no choice but to receive her in his office. By the way, what brings you here? Blue Flame of the Sanctification Order. It is rare for someone like you to travel in person like this. Then the blue-haired priestess handed Tretton a slip of paper. She told him to take a look first, and at the same time asked whether he had ever seen the man drawn on the paper. Tretton picked it up and took a look. Wasn't this Lord Priest Yeso? But he did not answer immediately, and instead asked why the Blue Flame of the Noble Sanctification Order was making inquiries. The blue-haired priestess said it was for personal reasons and was inconvenient to disclose. After hearing that, Tretton said he had never seen this person, and if that was the reason she had come here, then she should please leave, because he was very busy now and probably could not spare more time to receive her. The blue-haired priestess did not say much more. She simply got up and walked out the door. After she left, Tretton thought to himself that this blue flame was probably not making inquiries about Lord Yeso's whereabouts out of good intentions, so he could not tell her the truth. Meanwhile, I had also finished dealing with all the snow spiders nearby, but seeing Kalman rummaging around inside the spiders, I felt puzzled. So I asked him what he was doing. He explained that he was looking for their poison sacs, because the poison of these creatures had a very good anesthetic effect and therefore had many uses. For example, it could be applied to weapons or arrowheads, or it could be taken directly into town and sold for a good price. After hearing that, I asked him how he knew all this. That did not seem like something a young master should know. He then said that he often took part in hunting monsters, so through constant real combat, the knowledge he knew had gradually increased. Since my body was now also covered everywhere in its fluids, I had Kalman tell me where the poison sacs were. That way, the two of us could collect them faster together. After finishing the collection, we walked another half day. At last, we arrived outside the walls of Kelton. But when the gate guards saw the two of us, they were greatly shocked. Then they hurriedly ran over to support us and asked how we had gotten here. I didn't understand at first how I could be asked such a bizarre question, so I could only say that I had walked here. Immediately after that, the guard said that the road to Kelton had been blocked for 3 days now, and the city was now surrounded by monsters on all sides. After hearing that, I told him to explain everything to me in detail. The guard said that lately, the monsters had been attacking around the city with increasing frequency, and according to those who had returned from the scenes, not only goods but even the corpses had disappeared. Kalman said that even if they were attacked by snow spiders, the corpses should not simply vanish. Because snow spiders absorb the bodily fluids of their prey, they have no interest in the prey's flesh. At that moment, another guard ran toward us. As he ran, he said that Lord Strun wanted to see the two of us. Then, led by the guards, we met the Lord here. After seeing me, he asked whether I was the demon slayer who had come from Gus, saying that he was truly overjoyed that I had come to their city. After sitting down, I asked the Lord what he meant by saying the city was surrounded by monsters. Could he explain it in detail? Strun said that we should also have noticed something on our way here. This siege was not launched purely by monsters, but had wicked God believers causing trouble from behind the scenes. But I said that if this was the work of a believer of a wicked God, then he should not be able to surround such a large city. Immediately afterward, Strun said that according to the priests who could sense wicked gods, at least 4 different religious orders had joined together to surround Kelton. No matter how he thought about it, Kelton was only an ordinary city and had nothing special about it. Why did something like this have to happen just when he had only recently taken office as Lord? He also said that if his father were still alive, he would definitely have been able to find a breakthrough somehow. However, the food stored inside the city was very sufficient. And the soldiers' morale was also very high, so for the moment the situation was not too bad. But all of this had happened too suddenly, making it impossible for outsiders to know that Kelton had been isolated. In the end, the Lord said he wanted me to lead a death squad, to break through the layers of monsters' encirclement, and bring news of Kelton to the people of other cities, so that other cities could send troops to support us. After hearing that, I first pondered for a moment, then told Lord Strun to leave this matter to me. After we got back, Mother said that I should have punched the Lord at the time, then escaped directly. I persuaded Mother that she couldn't say that. Look, the Lord also gave us this item as a reward. I really never expected to get this item here. With this thing, after I use the serrated sword, I will have a place to bathe, because this basin can continuously produce water. And, Mother, didn't you also teach me that soaking a sword like this can make it sharper? With that, I put the water basin into my backpack. Then I told Mother the truth. The reason I agreed to that isolated and helpless Lord was not because I thought well of him, nor because of whatever reward he had given me. It was because I felt that this siege was like a reminder, telling us that the main quest had already begun. And what gave rise to this thought was precisely the fact that 4 different religious orders had joined forces. Although generally speaking, the name Wicked God sounds very evil. In fact, in this world it is not particularly special. It is merely a category divided out by the gods of the major mainstream religious orders on the continent. After that, gods of this kind were naturally labeled as wicked gods. What followed was all kinds of persecution against them, but one thing that can be said for certain is that while those wicked gods themselves may not necessarily be anything, among the people who serve wicked gods, very few are mentally sound. Perhaps for that very reason, religious orders serving wicked gods almost never join forces, which is different from the mainstream orders. Because whenever it comes to opposing wicked gods, believers of the mainstream faiths will crown themselves with the name of justice and join forces unconditionally to launch a crusade. And yet this time, the religious orders serving wicked gods actually united, which made me feel very strange. I believed that this was definitely no ordinary matter. So we set out on horseback overnight. Just as we had not gone far beyond the city gate, Kalman sensed movement behind us. When he turned around, he discovered that several snow spiders had already caught up to us. I looked and knew the time had come. So I ran over and told Kalman that I would draw these things' attention myself. Kalman said that even for me, facing such a huge number of monsters alone would still be very dangerous. I told him that if this kept up, we would definitely be caught. So you all run and find reinforcements. Please, you must bring reinforcements back. After saying that, I jumped backward off the horse. Seeing that, Kalman shouted my name at the top of his lungs. But I merely put on an expression of facing death calmly. In the end, unwilling to waste everything I had done, Kalman knitted his brows tightly and rode off at top speed to seek reinforcements. After landing, I kicked up the snow on the ground around me, blocking Kalman and the others' line of sight. At the same time, it also blocked the monsters chasing from behind. At that moment, Mother said that my acting just now had been superb. Of course it was, otherwise how could I now enjoy this grand feast all by myself? With that, I activated the serrated sword in my hand, producing a deafening roar. So next, let me go and look for the hiding place of those wicked god believers who sent these monsters here. With that thought, I gripped my 2 swords and charged toward the group of monsters behind me. And not a single one of these monsters could withstand one slash from me. As I swung one blow after another, the monsters also fell one after another. I swung the weapons in my hands with all my strength, trying to increase the speed at which I could kill them. For a while, not a single monster could get close to me. Before long, I had killed all the monsters around me, but I had already slaughtered all their underlings and was already on the way to find them. Yet they made no response whatsoever. It seemed they truly understood nothing of the art of welcoming guests. While scouting ahead, I discovered a cave built by humans. Not only had everything inside been moved away, but there were also corpses on the ground that had been sucked dry by snow spiders. But inside those cocoons above my head, I estimated, were all fresh corpses stored by the snow spiders. As I walked on, I suddenly stopped, because the space I had just entered was enormous, large enough for more than 10 giants to live in together. Clearly, this had not been built by humans themselves, and the moment I entered, I felt killing intent coming down from above. So I stood in place and shouted, "Come out! I saw you long ago, stop hiding!" The moment my words fell, an enormous spider appeared above my head, several times larger than the snow spiders outside. At the same time, densely packed small spiders also swarmed out around me. When the giant spider came down, the dust it kicked up instantly swept through the surroundings. I also began to pray, "Great Mother of Decay, please draw that line of decay. Your son now requires your authority. Tonight I will offer you the head of that man-eating spider." With that, the giant of decay leapt out from a teleportation circle. Then with a single punch, it drove the man-eating spider's head into the ground. I knew that relying on the giant of decay alone would make victory difficult, so I used script of decay and prepared to join the battle. Sure enough, after the man-eating spider got back up, it stabbed its limbs into the giant of Decay's body. I took a look. The man-eating spider was more than twice as tall as the giant of Decay, so I had to quickly find its weak point. At that moment, the small spiders around me began pouncing toward me. But in my eyes, killing them was as easy as slicing melons and chopping vegetables. Before they could even come within 5 meters of me, they were split in two by my sword aura. I knew that divinity was gathered within the queen man-eating spider's body, so from this point on I could not tear her apart. Just as I was searching for the man-eating spider's weak point, one small spider suddenly lunged at me and gave me an idea. Then I concentrated all my strength in my legs and leapt toward the man-eating spider, jumping directly over the cluster of small spiders on the ground. Midway, I told the giant of Decay to grab hold of the queen spider's limbs. After hearing that, the giant of Decay firmly seized the man-eating spider's forelegs with all 4 hands. I thought to myself that no matter how big it was still only a spider. And the weakest part of a spider is the connection point between the head and abdomen. While the giant of Decay held it in place, I drew my sword and leapt to its connection point, slashing down hard. When one strike did not work, I raised my hand and struck out with another. The man-eating spider cried out in pain and turned to look at me. I saw that I could not drag this out any longer, so I concentrated all the divinity into my sword. And with that strike, I finally severed its connection point. Without the support of that joint, the man-eating spider's head began to fall. But with a burst of strength from the giant of Decay, it actually lifted the spider's upper half above its head. After I landed elegantly, I felt a chill run down my back. When I looked up, I saw that the giant of Decay was staring at me coldly. I hurriedly apologized to it, saying that I should not have abandoned it to take a beating by itself last time. At that moment, I suddenly heard someone cursing at me from the side. When I turned to look, a person was crawling out of the man-eating spider's mouth. I smiled and said, so it really was a human after all. When she heard that, she cursed at me even more viciously. Cursing as she crawled out, she even said that wasn't I the same as her, both believers of wicked gods? She also asked whether I knew how much effort she had put into enslaving this queen spider. But it was as if I had not heard anything at all. I simply asked calmly what the purpose of surrounding Kelton was. Just as she opened her mouth to curse at me again, I stabbed my sword into her shoulder. The next second, her agonized scream spread throughout the entire cavern. At once, the kindly smile vanished from my face, and I asked her again what the purpose of surrounding Kelton was. But she cursed me as a madman. Then, hearing that I very much wanted to know their purpose, she felt that I probably would not do anything too excessive to her. So she stood up and said that she would never tell, even in death. Hearing that, the corner of my mouth curled into a slight smile. So this is the answer you are giving me. In that instant, she regretted it because she felt pure killing intent coming from me. But I gave her no chance to react. With one clean stroke, I granted her wish for death. Then I offered her to Mother as a sacrifice and obtained 1,000 points of divinity. After returning my sword to its sheath, I asked Mother, which number wicked god believer do you think will tell us the truth about all this first? Mother said that by the third one, someone should talk. Since Mother was betting on the third, then as her son I could only bet on the fourth. But after I returned to Kelton, the scene before my eyes made me frown tightly. Because at this moment, flames were rising everywhere within the city, and from the looks of it, it had already been breached. At this moment, the scene shifts to the Lord's room. Several believers of wicked gods had just killed the Lord, and they complained that because of those people who had charged in just to protect that pig, they had wasted quite a lot of time. That yellow-haired man asked how the state of the incarnation was now. The black-haired woman said, "You know as well as I do that extracting divinity from living creatures is a difficult thing, so it is still very unstable now." Immediately afterward, the blonde woman said that, besides, they still were not ready, and if anyone was to blame, it was someone for failing to stop the rats that had flowed out of the city, and with the plan suddenly beginning now, the success rate was only becoming smaller. The black-haired woman became angry when she heard that, because she knew that remark was aimed at her. She explained that if it had not been for those two big brutes from the recovery order and that fellow from the cult of edification desperately blocking her, there was no way she would have let that guy with the very accurate arrows escape. And if Lyra could have sent a few more spiders over, he would not have escaped so easily. Only then did the one-eyed blonde woman remember why Lyra had still not come. She figured Lyra was probably out playing with corpses together with her spiders again, but they had no idea that the Lyra they were talking about had long since been killed by me. At that moment, the blonde man interrupted the quarrel between the two women, saying that fighting among ourselves brings harm and no benefit. The problem now is that one person has already run out to report the news, so those so-called righteous religious orders will soon come rushing over. Then he turned to the black-haired woman again and said, "You haven't forgotten how many years we prepared for this plan, have you?" The black-haired woman retorted that who among them had not endured hardship throughout these 3 years, and asked why he always put on the airs of a leader, and why he always only bullied her. Did he think she didn't want to stop him? Just because that rat got away, now he was showing her attitude. Then she turned her anger on the blonde woman and asked whether she hadn't had fun playing with him last night. Hadn't the two of them been together all the time recently? The blonde man couldn't take it anymore and told Parna to shut up, saying that he would make Lyra bear the responsibility. Only then did Parna close her mouth in satisfaction. Just as she was about to say something else, her pupils suddenly widened at the sight before her. Someone had actually burst silently out of the flames and, with a single slash, cut off the blonde woman's head. That sword was somewhat different from ordinary swords. It was covered in rapidly spinning serrations. Just as the blonde man was preparing to dodge backward, I gave him no such chance, directly swinging my blade down at the crown of his head. Right before Parna's eyes, I split him in two. Then Parna watched as I slowly emerged from the raging flames, the flesh of my body already burned beyond recognition. Seeing that I had directly killed the third person without another word, Mother said that my behavior was truly shameless. As my face regenerated, I argued back to Mother that these were all people possessing divinity, so this way they could still damage my body. If I didn't do it this way, I would get hurt during the interrogation that came next. Parna saw that ever since appearing, I had been talking to myself non-stop, but she was also shaken by my terrifying strength and did not dare move rashly. After the muscles of my face had mostly recovered, I turned to look at her. She thought to herself that today she was surely going to die. But unexpectedly, I revealed a kindly and amiable smile and asked, "Esteemed believer of a wicked god, what is the purpose of your surrounding Kelton?" She first froze, and then took me to a certain place. After seeing the thing before me, I said that you people were even more impressive than I had imagined. In the central plaza of the town stood a giant sphere of flesh. This woman introduced herself as Parna. The moment I asked their purpose, it was as if she had been waiting all along for me to ask, and she told me everything she knew. I had never expected the cause of the matter to be even simpler than I imagined. Their goal was to use the people in the city as sacrifices in order to create a divine clump-like monster called an incarnation. For this plan, they had carried out secret activities in this town for 3 full years. According to their original plan, they still needed another 5 days of preparation. But because Kalman had suddenly escaped, they had no choice but to begin the plan ahead of schedule. After hearing all this, I activated the serrated sword in my hand again. When Parna saw that, she had already begun stepping backward, asking what I intended to do. I told her that that monster had eaten so many innocent people, so now I was going to kill it before it awakened. Ignoring Parna's attempts to stop me, I walked over and directly slashed at the mass of flesh. At that moment, Parna shouted that if the monster's life were threatened, it would awaken while still unstable. Just as her words fell, something burst out from the flesh sphere. Then with a tentacle, it pierced straight through my shoulder. Immediately after that, a white one-eyed monster tore open the flesh cocoon wrapped around it and shouted to the sky, "It hurts so much." At that moment, Mother told me that within this creature's body, there existed a relic. Hearing that, I immediately grew excited. Parna ran behind me and asked what we should do now. Without even turning my head, I slashed my sword across her neck and told her that this was the price she ought to pay. At the same time as killing her, I also absorbed 2,000 points of divinity. Now, in total, I had 8,592 points of divinity left, because on the way here, I had already absorbed the Lord, and also those 2 wicked god believers whom I had instantly killed. As long as I gathered another 1,000 or so, I could exchange it for a new authority, and the thing before me had arrived at just the right time. But I discovered that the wound I had just made with the serrated sword was visibly healing and regenerating at a speed perceptible to the naked eye. The chunks of flesh on its body were gathering together, and unlike the queen spider, it did not have any obvious weak point. On the other hand, the more attacks imbued with divinity I suffered, the worse the situation would become for me. So now, in facing this thing, only one method remained. With that thought, I gripped the serrated sword tightly. Then with a sudden burst of force from my feet, I turned around and ran. The bewildered monster was bewildered when it saw that, but it reacted quickly enough. The slash I had given it just now had made it very angry, and seeing me flee, it began to chase after me. As I ran, I absorbed the divinity from the corpses on the ground. As long as I absorbed another 1,000 or so, I could exchange it for a new authority. So I decided to run into the town and engage this huge thing in a chase. Let's see whether it catches me first, or whether I awaken a new authority first. But as it chased me, the monster suddenly stopped and then let out a deafening roar in my direction. The moment I heard that roar, my heart trembled. I had not expected this thing to be so powerful that even its voice carried divinity. Seeing that I was no longer running, it began releasing its tentacles, launching a carpet-like barrage at the area beneath my feet. Although I dodged all of its attacks, I still felt the strain greatly. So I prayed once more and asked Mother to help me. Immediately after that, a teleportation circle appeared above the monster's head. The next second, it saw the backside of the Giant of Decay descending from the sky. The Giant of Decay made the same kind of entrance as before, appearing above the enemy's head, then clasping both fists together and hammering the enemy's head into the ground. But the monster's tentacles also began stabbing into the Giant of Decay's body. I could immediately tell that the Giant of Decay was no match for the monster at all. I told it not to force itself, I would be right back. Right now I had to immediately gather more corpses, and they had to be the corpses of knights or well-trained elite soldiers. After rushing into the sea of flames, I discovered that some corpses had already been burned to charcoal. If I had known that, I should have absorbed them the moment I arrived. Fortunately, most of the corpses were still usable, and before long my divinity had risen to 9,237 points. Just as I was still a little short, I suddenly felt the ground tremble. The next second, a large hole was smashed through the wall before me. Seeing that, I quickly activated the serrated sword. At the same time, I also dodged backward. But immediately after that, a tentacle attacked me. As I blocked it with my sword, I felt that these tentacles had all become much harder. Just after batting away those tentacles, I felt the sound of something cutting through the air from above my head. When it landed, the shockwave swept through the entire room. But I dodged that attack by flashing aside. When I saw the monster before me, I finally grew serious. I saw that it had already taken human form. It seemed that it had grown while fighting the Giant of Decay. Immediately afterward, it raised a hand toward me. The next second, many more tentacles grew out from its arm. Seeing that, I poured divinity into the serrated sword and cut those tentacles apart. It was obvious that when it saw how powerful my sword was, it froze for a moment. And I also took advantage of that brief pause and charged straight in front of it. But when it saw that, it let out a creepy laugh and clenched its fist toward me. Yet it did not strike at me immediately. Instead, more tentacles grew from its arm and trapped me. Then, with a hard yank of its arm, it slammed me heavily into the ground. Mother hurriedly asked whether I was all right. I told Mother not to worry and said that my luck really was excellent. Do you remember what those wicked God believers said? They had gone through quite a lot of effort to deal with the knights protecting the Lord. And the corpses of those knights just so happened to be in this very place. At this moment, the monster was also preparing to charge at me again. I told Mother to absorb all the corpses of the knights in this square. As green flames burned across those corpses, my divinity also continued increasing. Before long, I had finally accumulated a full 10,000 points. Seeing my abnormal state, the monster also stopped in its tracks. I told Mother that I was already too impatient to wait. I hereby offer you 10,000 points of divinity. Please grant me a new authority and make me stronger. Then, under the monster's astonished gaze, black smoke began rising from beneath my feet, enveloping the surroundings. Before it had time to react too much, I brought it into a pitch-black space. At that moment, I slowly walked out from behind it. While wearing a wicked smile, I activated the serrated sword in my hand. And at the same time, I also used Script of Decay. When the monster saw that, it knew it could not wait any longer. So it clenched its fist and struck at me. I did not dodge at all, only smiled faintly. Because my new skill, Pit of Decay, would cause creatures trapped within it to slowly rot while still alive. And I was no exception, I too would slowly rot. But I could use it in coordination with Script of Decay, so that the parts unnecessary in battle would be the first to be corroded. The other side, however, could not control it this way. I would like to see whether your regeneration is faster, or whether the speed at which this Pit of Decay rots living things is faster. With that, I tangled in brutal combat with it inside this Pit of Decay. After a fierce and savage battle, the monster was finally corroded until only its torso remained. In the end, I pierced its heart with one sword, and it stopped moving completely. And thanks to my powerful regenerative ability, I remained unharmed. Then, from inside the monster's body, I obtained a relic. So I offered this relic to my mother as a sacrifice, allowing her to undo yet another seal. As the relic was infected by the aura of decay, I also released the Pit of Decay skill, but after coming out, I saw that not only had the relic stopped glowing, even Mother within my clothes had disappeared. At that moment, I saw a little girl not far away staring at me. Her mouth kept repeating, "Kill, kill." In an instant, my maiden heart was completely captured. I thought to myself, could this be Mother after another seal had been removed? At that moment, the little girl slowly began walking toward me. When she came before me, I reached out and gently stroked her face, which confirmed to me that she was indeed my mother. Then she asked me why she looked like a child. I said, "Isn't that something only you yourself would know?" Then I said, "May I ask a question? That is, the body of that dead incarnation is filled with the divinity of other gods. If it were simply allowed to disappear like that, it would be far too wasteful." So I asked Mother whether there was any way to absorb it. After hearing that, Mother stretched out her tiny hand. Then she put on an expression of great effort and began trying to absorb it. But after a long while, not the slightest trace of divinity was drawn out, and Mother became so anxious that she knelt on the ground and burst into tears. I comforted her, saying that if it couldn't be absorbed, then there was no need for her to force herself. With all kinds of divinity mixed together, in her current state it was indeed still very hard to absorb. After hearing that, Mother turned and threw herself into my arms. Looking into Mother's sorrowful eyes, I said that although we hadn't absorbed it, there was nothing to be done. Since one of your seals was undone through the relic, that means we regained another 10,000 points of divinity. So, Mother, now I offer you 10,000 points of divinity. Please grant me a new authority. As a green light flashed through Mother's eyes, I was enveloped once more, just like the previous times I obtained an authority, by a mass of emerald light. Only this time, perhaps because Mother had removed another seal, this emerald light mass was several times larger than before. After the authority had been bestowed, Mother suggested that I should use this skill often and not feel burdened by it. Holding Mother's hand as we walked, I said, "How can you say such a thing? This authority I have just been granted is called Curse of Decay. It is an extremely vicious skill. Once cast, it can curse every living being in a town, causing them to rot bit by bit at an extremely slow speed. If the target were villains or people already dead, then perhaps it would not matter, but I will not use innocent people in exchange for divinity." Then I asked Mother again, how did the relic sealing her divinity end up inside this monster? If this was not pure coincidence, then perhaps Mother's divinity had been the medium used to create that incarnation. Faced with this series of headache-inducing questions, there was an even bigger problem, and that was that although my body looked completely unharmed on the outside after the battle just now, because I had suffered far too many attacks carrying divinity, my body had already reached the absolute limit of what it could endure. As a sharp pain spread through my whole body, I lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, Mother burst into tears in panic and ran to my side. The last thing I felt was Mother's teardrops falling onto my face. I do not know how much time passed before I suddenly snapped my eyes open. I found that Kalman was by my side at this moment. The very first thing I did was reach for the place where Mother usually rested. Then I sat up in one movement and anxiously asked Kalman where my clothes and personal belongings were. Kalman told me to calm down first and slowly explain to me. But in a nearly hysterical voice, I continued asking him where exactly my belongings had gone. Seeing how anxious I was, Kalman took something out from behind him. When he handed it over for me to see, it was Mother. I hurriedly took Mother over and checked her carefully. Only after confirming that nothing was wrong did I breathe a sigh of relief. Kalman said that it seemed this thing was very important to Lord Priest. Everyone else thought this was not something you would carry with you, so they wanted to throw it away, but I kept it separately for you. Upon hearing that, I revealed a radiant smile and thanked Kalman repeatedly. He told me there was no need to be so polite, and said that if I had not risked my life to save him back then, he would already have died at the hands of those monsters. Then, through questioning Kalman, I learned that this was his dormitory, and that we were still inside Kelton. There was only me as a survivor in the entire city, and I had already been unconscious for a full 10 days. The scene shifts to somewhere in the wild. Someone, upon seeing the blue-haired priestess, began frantically fleeing for his life. But before he had run very far, a knife struck his thigh. The pain instantly spread throughout his body, forcing him to collapse into the snow. The others in the group, seeing this, did not dare say a word. Then the blue-haired priestess walked up to the man who had tried to flee and looked at him coldly. The man knelt on the ground like someone seeing the Grim Reaper, bowing repeatedly and begging for mercy. But in the end, he was still cut down by the blue-haired priestess. Immediately after that, the blue-haired priestess released her blue flames and burned the man's corpse to ashes. Then she turned back to the group and told them to keep moving. Not a single person in the group dared resist. By evening, they came to a town. The leader of the group told the gate guard that they were the Snow Bear Bandit group. Then he begged the guard to lock them all up in prison because they truly could not endure it any longer. You heard that too, didn't you? All right, I understand. However, Lord Kelton, who issued the bounty, was not long ago killed by that group of wicked God believers, so if you want to claim the reward, you may need to wait about another day. The moment the blue-haired priestess heard this, she became interested. She asked the guard what had happened to those wicked God believers afterward. The guard said that the wicked God believers and the demon they created had all been killed by the enemy of wicked gods, Lord Priest Yeso. After that great battle, Lord Priest had remained unconscious for a full 10 days, and only woke up this morning. When the blue-haired priestess heard the name Yeso, she murmured, "The demon slayer of Gus." Then she asked the guard whether that priest was still living in Kelton. Meanwhile, I was attending a banquet in the city. Not long after, the blue-haired priestess arrived at the tavern. She asked someone whether they had seen Lord Yeso, the enemy of wicked gods. The moment everyone heard my name, they all raised their cups and shouted, "Long live Lord Yeso." Seeing that I was not there, her expression instantly darkened. And as for me, I had just left the city together with Kalman. The reason I had left in such a hurry was because Tretton had told me that a priestess called Azure Flame from the Sanctification Order was looking for me. The moment I heard Tretton's description of that person, my heart trembled. Then I asked Tretton whether he thought that woman knew I was still alive. Tretton said that the priestess did not seem entirely certain either, but she had no intention of giving up the search. At this moment, Mother also urged me to quickly leave the area around Kelton. I knew that too, unless I had gone mad, I should not remain in Kelton. Because that woman was the strongest person I had ever seen. She was worth a full 4.5 fingers. So I called for Kalman and once again set out on the journey. 2 weeks after we left Kelton, on this day, as we were traveling through the snow as usual, we suddenly saw a carriage coming from the distance. Kalman took a look at the crest on the carriage and found that it seemed to be the emblem of the Ilmi family. I also knew that Ilmi was a great lord from the south, and that white camellia design was their family crest. I asked Kalman whether we needed to stop and greet them when we passed by. Kalman said there was probably no need. Judging from the fact that they were not flying the family head's banner, the one inside should probably be a collateral branch member or one of the family head's children. So Kalman thought it would be best if we just passed quietly. Just as I was passing shoulder to shoulder with the carriage, I suddenly felt my heart jolt. I grabbed Kalman and quietly told him that the person inside the carriage was tied up. But even though I had already lowered my voice, it was still heard by the men leading the group. Those men also all dropped their disguises and said that they had intended to let us go, but since we had found out, they should not blame them for being rude. With that, they ordered everyone to swarm toward us. The next second, accompanied by a violent explosion, the few who had charged a little more slowly all froze in place. One of the leaders stared in disbelief at the scene before him. Not only was he shocked by Kalman's arrows, which were both fast and precise, he was even more frightened by the power of the serrated sword in my hand. But one of the leaders told his men to attack together. The others did not dare disobey. So they launched another assault against us. The result was easy to imagine. In a short while, we had wiped them all out. Then we rescued a little girl from the carriage. The moment she came out and saw this scene, she began vomiting frantically. Kalman asked me whether I knew that young lady's name yet. I told Kalman that he could see for himself that now was probably not the right time to ask her. Besides, she also seemed to have been drugged with something, and her limbs still could not move freely. Then Kalman told me to check whether her eyes were golden. I took a look and found that they indeed were golden. After hearing that, Kalman said that then there was probably no mistake, she should be a child of the Ilmi family. After she recovered enough to speak, she told me to stop patting her, because if I kept doing it, she was going to throw up even her stomach. When Kalman walked over and got a clear look at the girl's appearance, his heart began pounding like a startled deer. Because the girl's figure and looks entirely matched his standards of beauty. The girl also introduced herself as the eldest daughter of Duke Kato Ilmi, the Smiling Duke. Her name was Dakia Ilmi. After hearing that, Kalman quietly told me that if this girl truly was Dakia, the daughter of the Smiling Duke, then she was a mage. The moment I heard that, my head started aching. A noble young lady and a mage. With those two buffs stacked together, I didn't even dare imagine how arrogant she must be. Then Kalman quietly said to me again, "But speaking of which, this young lady really does have a broad heart." I replied, "Indeed." After hearing that, mother told me to kill both of the people in front of me. Seeing the two of us staring at her and whispering, Dakia asked us our names. And she said that at a glance I looked like a priest. After hearing that, I told her that I was a priest serving the goddess of preservation, and that my name was Yeso. After hearing that, she praised me, saying that Yeso was a very fine name. Immediately after that, she held out her hand to me, and said that walking was a little difficult for her now, because she had inhaled anesthetic smoke earlier and her limbs were still numb. She asked whether I could support her for a while. But at this moment, Kelman stepped forward and introduced himself as the son of Lord Insis Batas, saying that he would support her instead. Dakia said, "Would that really be alright? If others were to see, then rumors about the black dog of the Batas family always sticking close to me might spread throughout the entire capital. And there should be a lover waiting for you in the city, right? You should also think of that person. You think what I'm saying makes sense too, don't you, Lord Priest Yeso?" When we heard these words, both of us were stunned, not for any other reason, but precisely because she was both a noble and a mage. And yet she had actually spoken with such grace and breeding. Kalman was the first to recover from his stunned state. He asked her how she had ended up running into this group of bandits. She said that although there was no clear proof of who the mastermind was, in her heart she already roughly knew. This kidnapping incident was certainly the work of her elder brother Delso Ilmi, who regarded her as a thorn in his side. After hearing that, Kalman asked how it could be her own brother. Dakia then explained that not long ago, the Dragon Kingdom had come with a marriage proposal. He was probably trying to use that as an excuse to marry me off there, since I have the right to inherit the family head's position, and thereby remove me, this thorn in his flesh. When I heard her say remove, I thought to myself that although that may be true, nobles have never really liked mages to begin with. Rather than saying nobles hate mages, it would be more accurate to say that they hate having mages born into their own families. The first reason, of course, lies in the general personality traits of mages. This not only makes it very difficult for nobles to teach mages proper etiquette, but especially for self-centered mages, the various incidents caused by the added status of nobility make them hard to control or deal with. The second reason is an ancient superstition that mages must not possess power. This superstition originated from an era even earlier than the time of the ancient empire, an age called the Twisted Age of Mages, and this superstition has been passed down ever since. Because of this ancient belief, most races are very wary of mages occupying the center of power. So when I heard that Dakia wanted the position of one of the 4 great Northern Kingdom lords, I knew that unless she could make her brother disappear from this world, it would certainly be very difficult for her to sit in that position. Yet from the moment we saved her until now, she had already told us about her brother 3 times in a row. As a result, the meat in her hand had already been roasted black. So I handed her the meat I had just finished roasting, and reminded her that if next time she talked a little less while grilling meat, the meat would surely turn out incomparably delicious. She could tell from my words that I was mocking her, so while taking the meat, she glared fiercely at me. After the meal, she said she wanted to make a suggestion. She wanted us to escort her to Beatus, the territory of the Ilmi family. And from the moment she started speaking, I had already guessed that she would make such a request. But what happened next was something I had not expected. Dakia actually said that as long as we escorted her back, she would pay us in gold equal to our own weight. The moment I heard those words, my pupils instantly widened. I thought to myself that, as expected of someone from the family of a great lord, her spending was truly lavish. But on second thought, Kalman was the one who had commissioned this journey in the first place. If we escorted the duke's daughter back to Beatus, then the matter of searching for his mother would only have to be postponed. Besides, if he had not helped me back then, mother's hand would very likely have been cremated. So if he chose to continue heading west, then of course I would also give up getting that gold. But at this moment, mother told me not to care about any of that, and that right now, immediately, without delay and with utmost urgency, I should go and gain weight, so that in a short amount of time I could raise my body weight. I told mother that no matter how much she liked gold, she couldn't turn her son into a chubby little fat boy. At that moment, Kalman finally made his decision. Since we had already decided to interfere, then we had to see it through to the end, only then would we not disgrace the name Batas. So in the days that followed, we brought Dakia along and headed toward Beatus. On this particular day, we discovered a town on the way. So we prepared to go in, rest our feet, and take a bath. Before long, Kalman had booked 3 rooms on the 3rd floor. He told us to hurry upstairs and take a hot bath, and afterward we could go have dinner together. After coming down from our baths, Kalman treated us to a lavish feast. Just as I was eating, I heard a commotion from the neighboring table. When I turned my head to look, I saw that several burly men were constantly pestering a waitress and refusing to let her go. At that moment, a big bearded man walked over to them and said that they were not allowed to cause trouble in this inn.